Hello, welcome back to the British Food History Podcast. My name is Dr. Neil Buttery, food historian and chef. Hello, new listeners, and welcome back, old guard. It's very nice to be back with you again for the 9th season of the podcast. I've got a really eclectic set of confabs recorded for you, and I'm very excited to share them with you over the coming weeks and months. Today, I am talking with Matthew Cockin and Grant Harper of Fruit Pig, the last remaining commercial craft producer of fresh blood black puddings in Britain. More than 99% of all UK black puddings are made from imported dried blood powder, don't you know? Now, I'm going to let you know of news, and there's lots of it, Easter eggs, etc. at the end of the episode, including a new food history festival and the secret podcast, but I always do like to give a headline before the start of the episode proper, and that is that Fruit Pig are sponsoring Season 9 of the British Food History Podcast. I have been looking at a way of attracting sponsorship, but I wanted to work with producers whom I really use and genuinely want to highlight. There are no betting companies or HelloFresh here. I'd already invited Matthew and Grant to come on to talk about their puddings, to complement my book, The Philosophy of Puddings, published by British Library Publishing, and as a huge fan of both black and white pudding, I wanted to speak with them about their business and why fresh blood black puddings are such a rare thing in Britain these days. It was only after chatting with them, organising a time to meet for the interview, that I asked them if they fancied being a sponsor, and they very kindly said yes. They have also very kindly sent me some fresh blood so that I could have a go at making a 17th century black pudding. More about that later. Fruit Pig make an amazing fresh blood black pudding, plus a gluten-free version, a beautiful hog's pudding, and a traditional haggis. I highly recommend all of their products, and Grant and Matthew are very kindly giving listeners to the British Food History Podcast a unique special offer of 10% off your order until the end of October 2025. Use the offer code FOODHIS, that's FOODHIS, or one word, capital F, in the checkout. It's also in the show notes. Really amazing products from some really passionate guys, as you will find out when you hear today's episode. I'm going to be posting some recipes using their puddings and their fresh blood over the coming weeks for you to try, so keep a lookout for those. Right, let's get cracking. Season 9, Episode 1. As already mentioned, I am talking with Fruit Pig, aka Matthew Cockin and Grant Harper, butchers, farmers and makers of traditional puddings. We talked about how and why they started up Fruit Pig, battling squeamishness, why it's so difficult to make fresh blood black puddings, and serving suggestions, amongst many other things. I'll be back to tell you about premium content for subscribers. It's going to be working slightly different with regard to Easter eggs. For the better though, but I'll fill you in with my news since the last episode all the way back in February. But now, please enjoy Black and White Pudding with Matthew Cockin and Grant Harper. Welcome to the podcast, Matthew Cockin and Grant Harper. How are you doing?
Hello there.
Hi.
Yeah, we're fine, thank you. Thanks for inviting us on.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, but I reckon the place that we should start is, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and Fruit Pig and how Fruit Pig got started up?
We started Fruit Pig up as a general butchery. Gosh, it sounds a long time ago, some 15 years ago. I started it, but Grant was soon in on the scene as it got a little bit busier for one person. And I was the plan was to use some of my own pigs and various other rare breeds, make sausages and bacon and all the good things that most good butchers do.
Mm-hmm.
Grant moved up to the area, wanted to be a smallholder like me. He had a previous career. I had a previous career in the military. And so we were sort of new to the smallholding game, but eager and keen. Grant set up as a smallholder. I did independently. We then joined Fruit Pig together and soon became a double act. And we're still here today. So there's something endured there. But what we did find is that there's a lot of good butchers around there, especially in Norfolk. And most of our deliveries were in Norfolk. We were very local. We weren't online. And we were making an income, but it wasn't really growing to enable the business to grow. all the other butchers made nice sausages too. And like everything with food, it's a subjective thing. The thing that we suggest that our bacon is the best bacon, well, someone else prefers somebody else's. So we weren't getting much traction or growing very fast. And we looked for some USPs, basically.
Yeah.
Grant and I analysed it in the way we did. We realised quite early on that most people, when they made black pudding, made it with dried blood powder. And indeed, our first black puddings were made with dried blood powder.
Right.
You buy it from a wholesaler, you mix it with water, and then you make your black pudding. We went to our local abattoir, which we both used at the same time as smallholders, and said to the owner, we've checked some rules. It doesn't look like we can't collect fresh blood as long as you agree to it. So we started to collect a little bit of blood, maybe 20, 30 kilos, and started making, on a very, very small scale, a black pudding made with fresh blood. And we thought then that it was rare, but not unique. Over time, it grew slowly. We didn't do much social media. A few people bought a bit more. And then we went to London, and we had a 2-day trip in London where we literally beat every door down of every hotel, restaurant, Harrods, everywhere. And we had a really successful time, apart from when we got back 2 weeks later, we hadn't got a single sale.
Right.
So everyone had enjoyed the produce and shoved us out the door, basically. We just didn't have enough on the table to get people there. So Grant and I looked at each other, me being ex-military and him just being curious and wanting to make some money. And we analysed it. We basically analysed it. Then we had a competition. Grant is extremely competitive.
Right.
And still remains so. And so he took the challenge up, went full secret on me, sat in a corner, testing recipes, and we ripped our black pudding recipe apart and started again. I'm sad to admit that Grant's recipe won the competition. And since
Annoying.
that day, it reminds me consistently. But since that day, the black pudding became something. Grant actually left to his own devices. Said, well, actually, I thought there was always a bit too much ginger in ours. And so he went his own way. And he did it brilliantly. We then started to just let it drip out, and it started to grow organically. We then got on to Jamie and Jimmy's Friday Night Feast in 2017. We were supplying Jimmy's farm.
Oh, yes. I remember that, yes.
They wanted to have a little 5-minute segment of, real oysters or real this, real that. And Jimmy said, well, you make fresh blood black pudding, don't you? And that elevated us for a very short period of time, but it did elevate us. But it gave us the confidence. So within 3 months, we were knocking on the door of the Hand and Flowers, bashing down Tom Kerridge's 2 Michelin-starred pub. And we got in. And we realised quite quickly that actually what we did have is not just a unique black pudding, but one that more people went, this is lovely.
That's the thing, isn't it? Yes, it's great being unique, but then you've got to back it up with it also being
It's got to have a quality
excellent
product.
Yes.
Yeah, if the flavours aren't right, then they don't buy it. It's as simple as that. It's got to be a good tasting product.
And the facts are that from 20 kilos to 1.4 tonnes last week.
Wowzers. Because I've done a lot of research on puddings, and I wrote a book about puddings last year, and I opened with black puddings, because then they seem to be the first ones. Because obviously it's an immediate, as soon as a pig's killed, you got to catch the blood immediately, otherwise it's gone. So obviously it's the first thing that ever gets made. So I have this idea of somebody there with a bowl collecting the pig, the pig blood as it spurts out. That is, of course, not what's happening in most abattoirs. And I assumed that you would have had loads of legal or hygiene hoops to jump through to be able to sell fresh blood black pudding, because nobody else is doing it at all. I just thought, it's...
We very much do have lots of legal hoops to jump through, and it's something that is very, very much an ongoing thing that we have to continue to jump through hoops. This is not something... You go into the vets, and let's be honest, they are the be-all and end-all of the abattoir. They run the abattoir as much as the owners run the abattoir. If the vet says that carcass is not fit for human consumption, it is not fit for human consumption. It is going in the bin.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that the slaughterman goes, no, that's fine. No. The state has said, and if we have to do whatever they say. We have to do the paperwork they say. We've changed the paperwork in the last year probably 3 or 4 times.
It's a living document, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it is. You're right. It is a lot of hoops to jump through. Not only is it very unsavoury, to get the buy-in to the local 2 abattoirs we used to work in the early days, Grant and I volunteered free of charge to work in an abattoir from 5 a.m. in the morning every Monday. As Kevin said, the first abattoir owner we went to, firstly, he paid for half of our training. He couldn't believe that 2 dumb schmucks were willing to volunteer to become slaughtermen and also work free of charge. Yeah. I then worked on the Sandringham estate, and the owner of that abattoir for months kept coming up to me and said, you still don't want any money. You're happy turning up. I said, as long as I can collect my blood legally and the meat inspector and the vet will authorise my blood. And so as Grant just said, they said, right, we need a form so-and-so to prove this. We need a filtration system. We need certificates from you. We need you to do the temperature check, because if it gets passed as an offal, it has to be below 3 degrees before the food business operator can legally release that product. Okay,
Right.
okay. So we wrote unique sets of procedures that we then got authorised at all the way up to the highest level, because it is, again, as we moved forward, we didn't realise just how unique we were. It's something that used to happen in every abattoir 40 years ago and happens in no other abattoir bar ours and a very select few abattoirs in the middle of nowhere, where the local butcher has his own abattoir, collects 20 kilos of blood and makes his own black pudding for himself. And there are quite a few butchers, I guess there's 1 or 2 in Norfolk, but they only do 10 or 20 kilos a week just to satisfy their local customers. And they just want to carry on doing it because actually the one I'm thinking of, his father used to make it that way and he wants to carry on the legacy.
Well, there's no better reason, really. I mean, that's certainly what we're all about here on the podcast, reconnecting with our food traditions and keeping them relevant.
Well, that's it. I mean, every village, every town would have had its own abattoir. You didn't have to take your pigs an hour and a half down the road like we do
Minimum,
now
yeah.
to get slaughtered. You took them and you possibly even walked them.
Yeah.
Half a mile, had them slaughtered, collected the blood, collected the offal. Now, rules have changed. The EU, etc., has made it a lot harder to take everything off of pig.
And as the food safety, and not just the EU, but as people have demanded, post BSE, post everything, they've said, right, we need to have this. So, the video cameras, the printouts. I mean, we're fully videoed by a meat inspector 24/7 when we're working in the abattoir. We then go to the duty technician with his red hat on, and we get him to double check that we've collected from the correct pigs that have been authorised for slaughter. All those pigs at the end of the line get their oval stamp on, like every bit of pork has to have, that is past fit for human consumption. And only then are we allowed to then store the blood to then cool down over the next 3 days or 2 days to get below 3 degrees before we can then remove it and get another signature from the duty food business operator that day to then drive it back the 56 miles to make our fresh blood black pudding. And all of that, including the van that has a ramp so we don't lift 80-kilo barrels up, has been totally adapted just for the single task of making pudding. And you can see why all the industrial black pudding producers go, I think I'll just buy some powder in, mix it and have a cup of tea.
Yeah. And it is, when I say a labour of love is possibly a little too romantic, but we are making ourselves work harder to do it traditionally. It would be a lot easier to phone the wholesaler up and go, can I have a pallet of dry blood?
Yeah, it might not be some romantic vision, but you've got to really believe in what you're doing, because no one's going to go to the lengths just to make a bit, that you two are going to, just to make a bit of cash, because I'm sure there are many easier ways.
There are a lot easier ways, a lot safer ways as well.
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
so you don't have to be doing this. So I think
one of my ears, I can't remember which one it was half detached because a pig kicked its shackle and ripped half my ear off. And I had to go to the local A&E, smelling from an abattoir, which wasn't savoury. We don't need medals for it. We're not looking to be congratulated, but yeah, it's not. If it were easy, everyone else would be doing it, wouldn't they?
Well, yes. So talking about recipes, Grant. How did you go about researching your recipe? I mean, I get interested about these things.
I'm a big history fan. I'm a big history lover. Specifically, I like the early 1800s, the Napoleonic era. I'm a big shark fan, huge shark fan. Audiobook nut on that period, and that's where I went. I literally went bland as Google black pudding recipe, and then picked what I liked out of everything. So, the recipes that I found, now a lot of them contain creams, sugars, and they're very sweet. And I tended to go more north of the border towards Scotland because what they did is they contained more barley. They contained...
You like that, don't you?
I do like that.
Yeah.
They contained onions. They contained more pepperiness than some of the more south of England, where obviously France has had a big influence over the years, dating back to the Normans, etc. They've tended to have a softer...
kind of like the Boudon Noir of France.
Exactly,
yes, they're really rich, almost custardy. Aren't they? They're really
absolutely
soft, very soft.
And I love the Boulinoirs. When I've been to France as a kid, they are delicious, but they're not what the British public is used to. And obviously, I had in my back of the mind, we've got to be able to make this a commercial success. There is no point making something that we love that isn't going to sell.
So while there's a Scottish, we're Grant and I say when your British version is rubbish, or when we have little bits of banter on social, so but actually it is a Scottish style black pudding. It is a nuttier barley black pudding
And onions,
fresh onions as well.
Yeah, fresh onions from the processing factory for the diced onions is 300 metres away, using East Anglian farmers. And keeping the food miles down as well.
But you're saying you got to design your recipe so it's still obviously a black pudding that people would recognise today. However, is there an obvious difference between eating a black pudding made from fresh blood and one made from dried blood? I reckon I could pass a taste test, for example, with something made with fresh eggs, something made with powdered eggs. Is it a similar thing? What do you reckon?
No, I think Joe Blogg's public would not tell.
And I don't think we would. The thing is, though, what we haven't done is skimped on all the other ingredients either. So when you've got some enough amounts of rich back fat in there and not a little bit of back fat, when we go to the chefs and they like to try it raw, the powderiness of a dried blood, you feel the powderiness on the tongue. And ours is literally a rich, cooked but cold cake. And the texture of ours compared to an uncooked dried blood is marked. Once it gets cooked, that is less so.
I think I would still be able to tell. I think the ones I've tried, the ironiness, and I know that's a made-up word, the ironiness, because you're intensifying the flavour of the dried blood, because drying anything intensifies flavour, I think the ironiness comes through in a dry blood black pudding that doesn't come in ours.
I've not tried one raw because I don't like. Once I have,
but even though I think you and I could do a taste test. I reckon 9 times out of 10, as long as it's not overly flavoured, and there is one that particularly, and I can't remember whose it is, that contains a lot of tiny herby flavours.
I know whose you mean.
Yeah, that I'm not a great fan of. Unless it's covered in flavour, I think I would be able to tell.
We've been talking about black pudding this whole time, but got to mention that you do make haggis and you make white pudding, stroke hog's pudding.
Yeah, that's a Grant recipe again. I'll take over from Grant, but it's his recipe. Great idea. Again, because we realised we got little bits of waste of bacons when we're slicing our bacons, and we were both taught that it's not what you sell, it's what you throw away in butchery that makes you your money. And it's so true. It's so true.
Right.
So if you can throw away nothing, you're going to make money because you're not wasting anything. So we had 5, 10, 15 kilos of bacon trim and bacon ends that we weren't using in our slicing processes on the bacons we made. And then Grant went away. I can't remember whether we decided we were going to do a white pudding. I think Grant went away and had a look at recipes that would use bacon. I think we did want to make a white pudding because it was a logical progression. But what Grant did find out is that, okay, you've got Celtic white puddings, which is fat and oats, and then lots of earthy spices like coriander and mace. But then, as part of probably a Wikipedia and plus a little tangent off on Google, you got into this hog's pudding area of Devon and Dorset and the southwest, and hog's pudding. And then you saw that we both like exotic spices, but in the hog's pudding, because of the spice trade, what they were making there from whenever the first spices came in is they're incorporating cumins and oreganos and real exotica into their white pudding. And he saw recipes with bacons in, and so he thought, well, that's where our bacon can go. Did a couple of trials and developments, and now we sell about nearly 10 tons a year of our white pudding / hog's pudding. Not only does it use all of our bacon waste, we now buy bacon waste in from a friend of ours who is a commercial baconeer, and we buy half a ton of his bacon waste at a time as well now, because the market has grown for our white pudding so much that we definitely can't produce enough bacon waste for our own white pudding.
It's good because it's a bit of an obscure food now, white pudding, I think. So it's great that you make it.
I think you'll find more people get angry over their white pudding than their black pudding. Because black pudding is made on a much bigger scale, a mass produced scale with some of the larger companies. White pudding is very much still a geographically product. It's a geographic product.
And many haven't heard of it. And if they have heard of it, it's from Ireland.
It's from Ireland.
It's on an Irish
Yes, I was going to
recipe.
say, I think of Ireland when I think of white pudding, really, yeah.
Devonshire's hog pudding, ours is an old recipe, but a modern Devon hog pudding is not like ours. It doesn't contain pork shoulder. I mean, yes, you'll have some old butcher in this one horse town in Devon producing it like that, but it doesn't contain pork shoulder or another meat. It is much more of a Celtic style. Our one is a very traditional recipe. It contains bacon in place of meat because that's what we had waste of, and it contains the other styles of spices and herbs that would have been available due to, as Matt said, the spice trade.
And of course, one of the things we put in there is we've got fresh red onion as well. So there's little stipples of fresh red onion in there. It's beautiful, beautiful.
Now, that isn't something that is traditional, but it is something that you're a massive fan of, is red onion. Huge fan of.
I'm addicted to red onions. Yeah.
Very much so. And we wanted to keep some interest and difference in there. And the red onion just has a little bit of a bite that works in there. It's very, very, very rich stuff, though. You do not need a lot of it. You can eat 2 or 3 slices of our black pudding. You can't eat much more than one of them.
Oh, that's really good. These are, again, we're talking about, other companies in general, food manufacturers cutting corners. Some foods, you think of like, I don't know, white bread in a supermarket. You can put away half a loaf of that and it doesn't touch the sides.
No.
You bake some white bread at home, you have one good slice of that with some soup and you're done.
You had your meal. And
I guess it's the same thing.
Yeah, yes.
With you guys.
We again, our products contain oats. It contains fat. These are filling ingredients. These are they aren't fillers. They are filling ingredients. They are a proper product.
Because of the authenticity, dare we say it, and it's not to deride any of the competition, but we just have our methodology. We want to be as. It doesn't sound like we are deriding opposition. We don't mean to say it at all, but we know what our path is and we know what we want to do.
Yeah.
I suppose it's the safest ground I can sit on.
Yeah, no.
We don't have hundreds of employees. We have 7 employees. We stay with what we know and we're comfortable with that. If we found a market and they found a market and we're happy. Oh.
Absolutely. The only time we ever adjust our recipes as such is if we're doing it for a dietary need, such as our gluten-free black pudding, which is growing hugely, massively growing. And we have tried some other varieties of black pudding, whether that be paleo or keto, but whereas their dietary wants, a gluten-free is a dietary need as such. So that's why we've stuck with that one and worked in that one. That is the only time we take our barley out of our black pudding because it contains gluten barley, and we use a gluten-free oat. That is the only time we change our products. We don't pander. We make sure our products are something we are proud of, we want to make.
Yes, and it's not like you're making something gluten-free, like, I don't know, again, talking about bread again, gluten-free bread is about 20 ingredients in it to try and make it appear like approximately, and it's not very much like bread in the end. But of course, it's very easy to make black pudding gluten-free. In fact, many black puddings are gluten-free anyway because just oats are used. So it's not like you're pushing the envelope.
Our white pudding is gluten-free as well.
Yeah,
naturally.
Very good.
Not by choice, it just is naturally gluten-free.
I'm going to have a go at making some black and white puddings. I'm going to go 17th century. So I'm going to be using eggs and cream and rose water and sugar and things like that. Wish me luck. Have you got any tips for the white or black pudding maker at home?
Well, firstly, if it tastes great to you once you've done it, then you've made your own. It's like when we started butchery and someone said, if you can cut a piece of meat up, it might not be the way that most people do it, but you can then roast that meat or cook it the way you want to cook it, and it tastes nice. You have butchered that animal correctly. The fact that it isn't that style or that technique, and the same with black pudding. Just watch out for the salt. Try and keep that. Don't go any more than 2%. It is a salty product. Okay. It was a way of using the blood up and filling people up and giving them lots of salt because they were manual workers. And do what you like at the end of the day. But the blood will, as Grant says, be a little steely. That's it. Just do what you want. And especially if you do like your boudins, you're gonna put some cream in and some sautéed onions. Don't forget, we have cereal. The French don't have cereal in their black puddings. The Germans rarely have a lot of cereal in their Blutwurst. But yeah, I mean, we did a buckwheat one to copy a Koshanka a couple of years ago, and that was nice and nutty. And the buckwheat looks beautiful. It's a very pretty looking seed.
I love buckwheat. Much underused.
Very.
Yeah, really delicious, nutty.
If you're not going to put a cereal in it, you might want to sieve the blood, because where small clots form, that's because it is a blood. You're going to get a lump in there that will have no flavour to it. So you may want to blend or sieve something to allow you to dissipate it among the cream. That makes any sense.
There is cereal in there. Sometimes there's breadcrumbs in there. Sometimes there are oat groats that have been soaked and then bashed with in a pestle and mortar. They also use suet over back fat in the old recipes. I couldn't find a single recipe that uses back fat. I think that's more modern. How do you like to eat your black and white puddings, by the way?
I like to hot pan, very little oil, sometimes no oil, depending on if it's an instant non-stick pan. But I just like to crozzle it, as I keep saying. We actually use it on the website, but people ask, what do you mean by crozzle? So I like to seal it on the outside, like you see the chefs do with a steak. So sear the outside, let that heat permeate through so it's nice and soft, but very warm in the middle. And that's perfect.
Yes, soft middle, crunchy outside.
Crunchy outside, so you've got that textural change. And if you do need to ask, don't bother. No sauces whatsoever with our black.
That's us told.
It doesn't. When you've got quality ingredients, you don't need any sauces. If I do anything, I'll have a little bit of brown sauce on the side, just a little, and touch a few things, and sometimes a bit of sriracha, because I saw a chef use sriracha in some beans once.
Everything's better with sriracha.
Stunning.
I mean, that's the exception.
But you find that if you're coating something in sauce, you're compensating for the problem.
Yeah, it's all a relish, isn't it? It's meant to give the food relish if the food hasn't got any relish itself. So if it's already got relish, you don't need to add more.
I'm exactly like Matt. I think crozzle on the outside, nice and soft in the centre. But I just prefer a bit of butter in the pan as well to base it in, because everything tastes better with butter.
Fair enough. I think people need to return to having black and white puddings for their evening meal, not for breakfast. It's great with mashed potatoes. The French trick of frying some apples in butter, with the black pudding as well, and having that on the side, that's
beautiful. Well, sweet and sour.
Delicious.
Sour.
Yeah.
Anything like
absolutely.
that. I think it's really good in a Lancashire hot pot, chopped up in a Lancashire hot pot. It retains its kind of a little squared, but there is a total textural difference when you're eating it when it's stewed in a sausage kind of cassoulet style with tinned tomatoes in the Spanish style. That works beautifully. Like they do with the mortillas. I
do cubes of it with shakshuka.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pizzas, fantastic.
Yeah.
With the right pizza flavors around the side. Ours is quite when I say strong black pudding, it's flavoursome. It's a beautifully forward black pudding and stands all by itself. So you've got to be aware of that. So we have a lot of people that use it with Scotch eggs. And we always recommend start at about 10% sausage meat, 10% black pudding to sausage meat, because if you go 50-50, you're going to have a black pudding Scotch egg. Ours is quite a forward flavour. So to get the balance right with your lovely sausage meat, if it's got a herb in it that you want to have in the sausage meat, well, then make sure you just come back a bit with our black pudding. But a lot of the commercial ones, quite frankly, are very bland, as you and I both know. And so, you probably would want to go higher. But then again, ours, because of its consistency, because of its lack of binders and raising agents and things like that, ours crumbles, mixes in beautifully. We have chefs that mould it. We're going to be passing a level of social media line soon. So I've got a plan to make the numbers out of our black pudding. I'm going for it.
Same with the white pudding, really. I mean, we had a chef on the Norfolk coast who used to use the white pudding in the base for one of his stocks or sauces. That works really well. But at the end of the day, it's anything you want to add a little bit of pepperiness or pep to, it doesn't work so well, I've found, certainly with Asian flavours. They don't tend to...
Never tried it.
They don't tend to work well. But, European flavours especially, fried little square potatoes with black pudding in it. Just...
Yeah, that sounds good. I've got to thank you two for being my first sponsors for the podcast.
You're very welcome.
No privilege, thank you.
I don't know if you listen to podcasts, but they're often for things like the adverts that pop up, the sponsors are things like betting companies and things like that. I'm like, I am not having that on my podcast. I want to try and attract people whose products I actually use and cook with and enjoy, so that other people can find out about it. I would have done an episode with you about black and white pudding whether you were a sponsor or not, because I think your stuff's absolutely great. And it's just so great that you're keeping these traditional methods, ingredients and techniques alive, despite that we've been living in a world, especially when it comes to food, that makes these things more and more difficult all the time. So it's got to be applauded. I'm going to stop being nice to you now, though.
No, I mean, but we're also, the word passionate, Grant hates now because everyone uses passionate about so-and-so. But I can't think of another word at the moment. But at the end of the day, we both want to enjoy coming to work. We have that luxury of liking and loving what we do. And I'm not just doing it because that's what you ought to say. You know, it just is a fact. And we can't apologize for it. We get enthusiastically geeky about the silliest of things, which out of these four walls literally have people looking at us going, you what? You know, we've got a new label coming that we've been developing for quite a while now. We've been busy doing lots of other things. We're a small group. So we're launching a new label for our black pudding, which will be the first time in 10 or 11 years. And I am like a child. I'm doing little blurred photographs and putting them on social media going, not long now. Whether anyone's bothered or not, I don't know. But I'm thinking that literally, rather like the Waitrose advert at Christmas, people are waiting with bated breath and the social. And do you know what? Everyone's going to go, yawn, thanks. Is that it? But to me, and Grant, but yeah. I'm a bit emotional about this stuff. And there's a couple of examples just beyond here. And I just can't wait. I'm just like a child before Christmas. And this is a label.
Oh, it's fantastic. Hey, it's time to wrap up, really. How can people find out more about the amazing black puddings that you make and sell?
If they type in Fruit Pig Company or Fruit Pig Butchery, if they type in Fresh Blood Black Pudding, all the web searches should drag you, if not to the first one, that most of the first pages of most of the web searches, if it says Fresh Blood Black Pudding, you'll come up with a couple of our stockists that might have sponsored their website ahead of ours, but all roads lead to Fruit Pig. And so Fruit Pig Butchery, Fruit Pig Company, Fresh Blood Black Pudding, and then you'll see the rest of the other products that we support and sell, hopefully the same standard and quality of what we also produce. But no, luckily with social media, Fruit Pig Company, in every social media you want to look at is our handle, Fruit Pig Company, all one word. And that's Instagram, everywhere really, even a bit of TikToking.
I got into all this food history from tinkering about in the kitchen. So it's the process of making and returning to old habits and proving to people, and I had this misconception, that food of the past wasn't awful. You know, it wasn't sludge, drudgery, unhygienic, boring, plain. It's so much better than largely than the food everybody's eating now, and it's gone downhill, not uphill.
I think you're completely right. But I also do think that people need to look at actually having some flavour of the product. Their meat needs to have flavour. Start eating more mutton. Start eating some more slightly old. This ex-dairy. Look at the number one steak in the world that everybody is talking about, the Spanish steaks that come over. They are an old ox. And the reason they are so good and so deep red and so yellow fatted is because it's an older animal. Start eating some Welsh Lake District or mutton that's a 5-year-old, because I tell you what, it will blow your mind.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. It's been so great talking to you. It's so great to meet you properly.
Thank you for inviting us on.
Yeah. Well, all there is to say really is thank you very much again for coming on, and cheerio.
Cheerio. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much, Matthew and Grant. You can find more about their story and Fruit Pig at fruitpig.co.uk. There you'll also find their online store. The link to it is in the show notes, along with lots of other useful links, social media handles, and various things mentioned in the podcast, such as their appearance on BBC Radio 4's The Food Programme and the time they cropped up on Jimmy's Farm. Don't forget their special offer that's going to be running for the duration of this 9th season. To receive 10% from Food Pig, use the offer code FOODHIS, FOODHIS, all one word, capital F. There's a link too to the episode of Sam Bilton's award-winning podcast, Comfortably Hungry, called Bleeding Cows and Black Puddings that featured yours truly and also food historian Kate Ryan talk about black pudding. There's going to be some recipes cropping up on the blog throughout the next few weeks, so I shall tell you about those as and when they are published. As well as the show notes, there's also a blog post with photos and some pudding serving suggestions, so check those out too if you've never been to the website. It's britishfoodhistory.com. But let's talk a little bit of news and let's start with the blog. There's been a few posts on there since February, so please check them out. Recipes for Yorkshire tea cakes, traditional scones, both sweet and savoury, the history of scones, and another pretty recent one about saffron buns with recipe. Oh, and there's the news of an award win. The project about food and social history at the Museum of Royal Worcester won the Food on Display Award at the inaugural British Library Food Season Award 2025. So we're really made up about that. We put a huge amount of work into it. It was great fun to deliver, and we're so pleased it was recognised by the judges. There was a recent announcement online, and this was also in the newsletter for subscribers, that the Serve It Forth Food History Festival will take place on October the 18th, 2025. It's being curated by me, Sam Beeton, Thomas Ntinas and Alessandra Pino. It's going to be online, and if you want to keep in the loop with announcements, please follow us on Instagram at Serve It Forth Fest. There will be a website very soon. Again, I will keep you in the loop as things develop. I'm just about to begin a short stint on BBC Countryfile magazine, writing a traditional recipe with history every month from July to November. Bakewell tart and summer pudding are two examples. Also, if you didn't catch it, Season B of A is for Apple finished recently. If you've never listened to it, please check it out. It's hosted by Sam Beeton, Alessandra Pino and yours truly. So please check it out if you haven't already. Also, I'm putting out new episodes of the podcast, the British Food History podcast that is, on my YouTube channel. So if you prefer accessing podcasts that way or know people who do, check it out. Or pass on the good news. Link in show notes, of course. I added a few things to the channel whilst I was away. The Monsters and Their Meals event that I did with Alessandra Pino. The video of the time I ate in Andouillette, full of hubris, that went wrong, and my talks on the history of baking and the history of puddings. I'm going to be attempting to add something every month to the YouTube channel. We'll see how I get on. What's it called? It's called the British Food History channel. Moving on to subscribers and premium content. I always say that all donations and subscriptions go into making more content, and recently I've been able to upgrade things. I have better recording apps and software, and most importantly, I've now got sound engineering and production support from Thomas Ntinas of The Delicious Legacy. We created an episode together a couple of years ago about 18th century women cooks and writers. If you haven't checked out The Delicious Legacy, please do so. It is an excellent podcast. So thank you to everyone who has donated by either gifting me with a virtual coffee or virtual pint, or by becoming a £3 monthly subscriber. Subscribers access premium content and receive a monthly newsletter and get first dibs on special events. Go to britishfoodhistory.com and click on the Support the Blog and Podcast tab to find out more. But of course, as I always emphasise, also keep doing whatever you're already doing. Telling folk, reviewing, rating, whatever you're doing, it's working. Thank you very much. Now, it used to be that I would add anything I had cut for time to my Easter eggs page on the website, but it does make it a bit clunky to listen to. But now I've worked with Captivate, who are my podcast providers, so that subscribers can instead listen to the unedited conversation I have created, the secret British Food History podcast. If you are a subscriber, you will have received a unique URL to access it. You will find there the complete conversation. I try to keep the episodes to 40 minutes, so I always have to kill a few darlings, but subscribers get to hear the whole thing. I'm going to try, at some point this year, to get previous seasons' Easter eggs on that secret podcast too. So, for example, today's episode on the Secret podcast has a whole extra 17 minutes of interview, where we discuss things like why modern slaughterhouses are not conducive to harvesting fresh blood, comparisons of fresh and powdered blood with fresh and powdered egg, hygiene myths, and the dissonance people think there is between raising and killing animals for food and caring for them. Remember, if you have any comments, questions or queries regarding this or any other episode, please contact me or leave a message on social media. There will be a postbag episode at the end of the season. Email me neil@britishfoodhistory.com or find me on social media, Twitter and Blue Sky @NeilButtery or Instagram and Threads as that's Dr_Neil_Buttery. Or post it on the British Food History Facebook discussion page, which is at facebook.com/groups/British Food History. Or, if you're on Spotify, just send me a comment on the app. Right, off I pop. I will see you soon for episode 2, but until then, please take care. Cheerio.